Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. You must be very excited because, of course, it's this week that Vampire Academy is finally landing on people's screens. Maybe for the uninitiated, can you just give us a very brief introduction to what it's all about? What can audiences expect from this new series?
Okay, so and it's hard to give it a brief, but I'm going to do my best. But it's basically about a world that's kind of hidden within our world that we don't know exists, where there's different breeds and races of vampires who formed their own hierarchy. And it's primarily we see it from the eyes of the school within this world. And you get to see this like different classes, people being trained for different thing or raised to do different things. And when we meet sort of our main protagonists, they're coming to the end of their time at school, and it's about them starting to realize what their roles within this vampire society is going to be.
Mm. And of course, I think vampires and stories around vampires are just one of those things that there seems to be endless appetite for. Is that almost a pun? Not quite. But and but this has also got quite a unique spin on it, and particularly the setting, the fact that it's kind of like, sort of young adults. What was the appeal for you? Had you already read the books? And why were you excited to be part of the project?
I mean, yeah, I had read the books. I'd read the books a while ago, and I kind of made the call not to go back and reread them before. I've read them since. I read them when I got home, and they're great. But we wanted to, well, I definitely wanted to have like a fresh take on it, and I didn't want to be too attached to maybe some things that were not necessarily changing, but we're definitely sort of like spicing a lot of things up and playing with timelines, which I think will be great for book fans, because you will know what's coming. It just isn't going to come in the order you think that it's going to come in. And I think the appeal for me is, like you say, like there's just something about vampires that's kind of timeless. There's that, there's that humanity to them, but also like they get the sort of around in the night and the dark hours. I don't know, there's something a bit dangerous about them, I think, that makes them really, really cool.
And what can you tell us particularly about your character?
Right, so I play Meredith Beckham, who is and this is a mouthful, but she is a Dampier Guardian novice, which basically means her breed of vampires that she's a Dampier, who are half vampire, half humans. So they have things like they have super strength and super speed, and they can go out during the day, and they don't live off blood the same way that sort of a more traditional vampire does. And the Dampiers have been bred by this higher breed of a vampire called the Moroi to be their bodyguards. So all the Dampiers you meet in the show play sort of those kind of subservient roles, and the biggest honor for them is to be a guardian. And Meredith is one of the guardians in training. She's kind of at the top of her class. She can hold her own in a fight, but Meredith's skill set is much more in the logical and the analytical. She's basically the smart ass of the group, which is so much fun to play. I can't lie. So yeah, she's been a great character to really play with as well, because she's someone who is mentioned in the books, but for the most part is a completely new creation by the showrunners and writers, which was a real honor to do.
And how much maybe could relate to her, and like, how did you kind of get into the character and prepare to play her?
In terms of like relating to her, that kind of, she deals with pretty much every situation with sarcasm, which is something that I have a very bad habit of doing. She's also, I say this all the time, but one of my castmates described her as she's going to tell you what you want to hear, no matter how much you don't want to hear it. And I feel like that sums her up perfectly. She's that completely loyal friend. It's just that she will be a bit harsh when she tells you. And in terms of differences, like those things I connected with, but in differences, the physical aspect of the role was so new to me. I spent 2 years on my sofa rewatching every TV series on Netflix. I was not prepped to play like a guardian vampire when the time came. So we were really lucky that we had this incredible stunt team in Spain, and pretty much as soon as we got out there, it was like, so your daily training starts now. It's trial by fire. So that was really fun as well.
And yeah, that was going to be my next question about the shoot. I mean, being in Spain, best part of the year, in those castles, you know, it must, because I think a lot of things now, you know, you sort of green screen and things are added in. So that must have felt like a real privilege to be actually able to shoot in those locations. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, you've summed it up. It's just an actual absolute dream come true. The amount of times we'd be in these locations and we'd just all be looking at each other going, what are we doing? What is happening? What is this? And the fact that so much of what we used wasn't even necessarily built for the show. They were just finding all these incredible locations that already existed within, you know, northern Spain, which was something that I was definitely not prepared for when we got out there. One thing that the showrunners, Julie and Marguerite, said is that we kind of want to show a world that you haven't really got to see on screen before, and they really did that. It was an absolute playground every day. Honestly, it was crazy.
And what about maybe some of the highlights and challenges? I don't know if you're doing stunts and things like that. Did you get kind of an elbow in the eye or anything like that? Or was there a particular moment that you really loved?
I think most of us got elbows in the eye at some point. No, it was great. Yeah, the stunts were, I'm not gonna lie, they were grueling. But it was all worth it. I mean, it never stopped being fun, no matter how physically hard it was. I'm trying to think of anything I can reveal. I can't say what my favorite stunts were because it's too far in. But definitely there was loads of just incredible sequences we all got to be a part of. But yeah, challenging, and also, you know, whoever it was that decided that vampires only go out at night got a lot to answer for, because 8 months of night shoots in freezing northern Spain did take its toll. As much fun as it was, everyone was exhausted by the end.
Yeah. It's not quite like being in South Spain in the sunshine, is it?
We said that. I think everybody within the first week was like, well, I'm gonna have to go buy a coat. I'm gonna have to buy more. No one was prepared for the level of cold. So
And tell us a bit about your fellow cast. I mean, it just seems like it just looks like you must have had so much fun shooting it. And, you know, and it's really kind of diverse and lots of different people from different places, you know, and ethnicities, nationalities. So what was that like, all being together? You must have had a bit of a ball.
we had an absolute blast. Like, I wish I could sit here and be modest and be like, oh, you know, but honestly, it was so much fun. You know, like you say, different people from all over the world. Cece, who plays our Rose, she'd never been outside of Australia, so like she was experiencing it from that side of things. We've got I did a lot of stuff with Andrew Liner, who is this incredible actor who is very, very LA. So as you can imagine, my very northern sensibilities with his very LA cool guy thing was quite the clash. It was very funny for everybody to watch, and also just things like this, like I say, this incredible, well-rounded cast. We ended up with like 3 Manx, like 3 Northerners all of a sudden in this very, very American show, which was the weirdest thing, but the most gorgeous thing. And also all these British icons that just kept cropping up. I remember like, all of a sudden I was on the set one day and Amanda Drew walked past and I was like, what? And Angela Winter, Lorna Brown, who I'd seen do so much wonderful stuff at the RSC, Jennifer Kirby, who was like this icon from Call the Midwife. It was just an absolute dream. And there is so much incredible talent, not just in terms of where people are from, but like the range of ages as well that are present in the show. It's just great.
You didn't have like is it Jodie Comer that always gets Americans who don't understand her real accent? You didn't get any of that, did you? Like,
I didn't understand accents. Both myself and Kieran Moore, who plays Dimitri, have very thick northern accents, and I think we both got mistaken for being Irish and Scottish at different points, which was, I mean, people understood us, but they definitely didn't know the accents. So.
Yeah. You can forgive them because it's, unless you give him, maybe you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get it. So and like the other thing that really strikes me about the show is that, you know, it doesn't sort of shy away from like being raunchy and the humor, and it's quite kind of bold, and the costumes and everything. And I think that just feels very contemporary as well. So was that something that really appealed to you, and you could really tell in the making of it?
100%. I think that it was something that was very clear from very early on, is that the show was not trying to mimic anything that had come before. There seemed to be so much creative freedom given to our incredible, like Sonny Bradbury did all the costumes for us. There was just this like, let's make this world as big and bold as possible. But also it was really testament as well to the writing, because it's kind of crazy that everything visually looked, as soon as it came down to the scenes, everything was so grounded and everyone was so confident in who they were and what their role is within the world. I think honestly, I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy it. I hope they do.
And, you know, what do you hope people take away? Because I guess shows like this can always work on different levels. You know, on the one hand, it's just a bit of escapism and go on kind of like the roller coaster ride of the story. But then, you know, it's kind of, there are parallels to our own society, with there being different classes and who's allowed to sort of connect with others and people being discriminated against. So, you know, there are always those kind of underlying messages.
Yeah. I think that for me, one of the most powerful parts of the show is, as I said earlier, we're sort of primarily seeing this world from young people who are coming to the end of their schooling, and they're starting to enter this world and figure out where they are when they enter this world. And they're starting to question it. And you will see throughout the show people of elder generations within this world telling them why things are the way they are. And the younger characters saying, no, maybe I don't need to change. Maybe it's time for the world to start to shift. And I think that's such an important thing for young people to take away, is that just because something's always been that way doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stay that way. And if you believe in something and if you know something's right, you should stand up for it. We all should. And I think that we get to see that put through, I mean, the joy and fun of a lot of vampires running around. But yeah.
I think this is going to be the next generation's Twilight. Like, everyone's going to get the same obsession.
Oh, I don't know about Twilight. I feel like Twilight was very iconic on its own. I'm not sure anybody can touch Twilight for what it was, but I definitely hope it's this generation's something.
Yeah,
it'll be something.
Yeah. And it seems like it's an exciting time to be a young actress. It does just feel like there's so many opportunities out there, and to do such a variety of roles, you know, without being kind of pigeonholed, or I don't know, you know, did you feel that right now for yourself?
Yes and no. I definitely think the industry's come so incredibly far, and we're really starting to push boundaries in a way that never has been. But I also don't think it's necessarily time to take the foot off the pedal, because I still think there are things that we need to make sure aren't acceptable as the norm going forward. But I mean, on the whole, like, I never in a million years thought that I would get to do something like this show, and not only get to do something like this show, but get to keep this accent, like my natural born accent, whilst playing this role. So yeah, I'm feeling incredibly blessed, very lucky.
And thinking of, you know, the stuff that you've done already before this, some of the highlights for you, and what have you got your eye on next? Both, you know, what you might already have in the pipeline, or, I don't know, directors you'd love to work with, or other actors, stories you'd like to tell.
Oh God, don't start me on that. You'll be here for an hour. There's so many, honestly, like I kind of, if I could have one wish for myself, it would be that I get to do as many varied things as possible. I'm a huge Guillermo del Toro fan. That would be an absolute dream, because it's similar, like people like Neil Gaiman. I think Mike Flanagan's brilliant. And in terms of actors, I always say this, like, I have a few actors that I would love to act against, but I'm just not sure I would keep my cool and be professional around them. Like, if Toni Collette walked in the room, I'm gone. It's man down. Like, I don't know if I'd actually be able to work opposite her. But yeah, there's so many things. I tell you what, I would really love to do. I'd really love to do like a really good ghost story. There's something about a really good supernatural horror that I think is my cup of tea. Yeah.
And have you got any bits of advice for other young people coming up in the industry from what you've experienced so far?
I mean, it's the age-old adage of, like, there is no such thing as overnight success, because I genuinely don't think there is. Just because someone's noted, all of a sudden you know who they are overnight, doesn't mean that they've appeared overnight. And just be patient, because this industry is still as brutal as I think people think it is. And also, I think finding your community. The thing that got me through the hardest times was having a community of fellow artists, or that I could talk to and talk about how hard it was, and talk about how we all wanted to quit and we didn't want to do it anymore. But yeah, I think that having friends in the industry is one of the most uplifting things you can get.
Mm. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me. And I can't wait for everyone else to get the chance to see Vampire Academy from this Friday. I think, yeah, this Friday.
Thank you so much.
So nice to chat to you. Thanks so much. See you.
You
Glad we got there in the end.